What would you do if a simple act of kindness changed your entire life? Emma Chen, a shy hospital nurse, never imagined that greeting an elderly deaf woman with sign language would lead to the most unexpected turn of events. But what she didn't know was that someone was watching her every move, someone who would soon make her an offer that would leave everyone speechless. Stay until the end to discover how this beautiful moment of compassion transformed not just one life, but dozens. And if you believe in the power of kindness, please hit that like button and subscribe to Kindness Stories for more heartwarming tales that will restore your faith in humanity. Emma Chen had always been invisible, and she preferred it that way. At 26 years old, she had mastered the art of blending into the sterile white walls of Mercy General Hospital, where she worked the grueling night shifts in the geriatric ward. With her petite frame, oversized scrubs, and a habit of keeping her eyes downcast, Emma moved through the corridors like a whisper, tending to patients with gentle hands and a kind heart that few people ever truly noticed. She wasn't like the other nurses who laughed loudly at the nurses' station or confidently bantered with doctors. Social anxiety had been her constant companion since childhood, making every interaction feel like scaling a mountain. But with patients, especially the elderly ones who reminded her of her late grandmother, Emma found a quiet courage she couldn't summon anywhere else in her life. It was a Tuesday evening in late autumn when everything changed. Emma was organizing medication charts when she heard a commotion near the entrance of the ward. An elderly woman, perhaps in her 70s, stood frozen in the hallway, her elegant silver hair perfectly coiffed, wearing a cream cashmere coat that spoke of wealth and refinement. But her face told a different story. It was etched with confusion and mounting distress. Behind her stood a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit, his dark hair slightly disheveled, his sharp features tense with concern. He was speaking to her, his lips moving rapidly, but the woman just shook her head, her hands trembling as they moved in frantic, incomplete gestures. Emma's heart clenched with recognition. She had seen this before. The isolation, the fear of not being understood. Without thinking, without allowing her usual anxiety to paralyze her, Emma stepped forward. Her hands rose instinctively, forming the shapes and movements she had learned years ago when her grandmother began losing her hearing. "Hello," Emma signed, her movements fluid and clear. "My name is Emma. I'm a nurse here. Are you looking for someone?" The elderly woman's eyes widened, then immediately filled with tears of relief. Her hands flew up, signing back with desperate gratitude. "My daughter. Room 312. I can't find it. No one understands me." The man in the suit had frozen, his eyes locked on Emma with an intensity that made her cheeks flush. But she forced herself to focus on the woman whose name she learned through sign language was Margaret. "I'll take you there," Emma signed with a warm smile. "It's just down this hallway. May I walk with you?" Margaret nodded vigorously, reaching out to clasp Emma's hand. As Emma guided her down the corridor, she continued signing, asking gentle questions about Margaret's daughter, making small talk about the hospital's garden that was visible through the windows, anything to ease the anxiety she could see in the older woman's face. She explained each turn they took, described the artwork on the walls, and when they reached room 312, she made sure Margaret was comfortably settled in a chair beside her daughter's bed before checking the patient's vitals. The daughter, recovering from a minor surgery, smiled gratefully at Emma through her grogginess. "Thank you so much," she whispered. "Mom has been so worried, and the staff downstairs couldn't understand what she needed." Emma simply nodded, signed a gentle goodbye to Margaret, and turned to slip away as she always did, back into her comfortable invisibility. But as she stepped into the hallway, she nearly collided with the tall man in the suit. Up close, he was even more imposing, with steel-gray eyes that seemed to see straight through her carefully constructed walls. "Wait," he said, his voice deep and commanding, yet somehow gentle. "Please, I need to speak with you." Emma's instinct was to flee, to mumble an excuse and disappear into the safety of her duties, but something in his expression stopped her. A vulnerability that seemed out of place on such a powerful-looking man. "I'm sorry. I need to get back to work," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes fixed on the polished floor. 5 minutes, he said. Please, I'm Daniel Morrison. That's my mother, Margaret. Emma's head snapped up. Morrison. As in Morrison Technologies, the billion-dollar tech company whose headquarters dominated the city skyline. As in one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. Her mind reeled, but Daniel was already speaking, the words tumbling out with uncharacteristic urgency. What you just did, do you have any idea how rare that is? My mother has been deaf since she was 40. For the past 30 years, I've watched her struggle to be seen, to be understood. I've hired assistants, interpreters, the best money can buy. But in everyday situations, she's still invisible to most people. They look past her, talk over her, treat her like she's not even there. His jaw tightened, and Emma could see the pain of 1,000 witnessed injustices in his eyes. But you didn't hesitate. You didn't treat her like a problem to be solved. You treated her like a person. How do you know sign language? Emma swallowed hard, fighting every instinct to run. My grandmother, she whispered. She lost her hearing when I was 12. I learned so I could talk to her. It seemed important. Important, Daniel repeated, a slight smile touching his lips. Most people wouldn't have bothered. He pulled out a business card, pressing it into her reluctant hand. I have a proposition for you. Morrison Technologies is launching a new healthcare initiative, a chain of assisted living facilities designed specifically for elderly people with disabilities. We want to create environments where residents feel seen, heard, and valued. But we need more than just fancy equipment and beautiful buildings. We need people who actually care. People like you? Emma stared at the card, her heart pounding. I don't understand. I'm just a nurse. I work night shifts in a hospital ward. I'm not qualified to— You're exactly who we need, Daniel interrupted. I want you to head our training program. Teach our staff what you know. Help us create a culture of genuine compassion. The salary would be triple what you're making now, full benefits, and you'd be making a real difference for thousands of people like my mother. The world seemed to tilt. Triple her salary would mean she could finally afford her own apartment, pay off her student loans, maybe even take a vacation for the first time in her adult life. But more than that, the idea of teaching others to see people like Margaret, to bridge that gap of isolation, it resonated with something deep in her soul. I'm not good with people, Emma confessed, her voice shaking. I have anxiety. I can barely speak up at staff meetings. How could I possibly train anyone? Daniel's expression softened. You communicated perfectly with my mother when it mattered. You saw her humanity when no one else did. That's not something I can teach. But it is something you can share. The rest, the confidence, the public speaking, we'll work on together. I'll personally ensure you have all the support you need. Over the following weeks, Emma's life transformed in ways she never imagined. She accepted Daniel's offer, terrified but unable to ignore the opportunity. What she didn't know was that Daniel had been searching for someone like her for 2 years, ever since his mother had broken down crying after a particularly isolating experience at a medical appointment. He had inherited his company at 28 after his father's death, and he'd made it his mission to use that wealth and influence to create change. Emma's training program became the heart of Morrison Care Facilities. She started small, teaching sign language and disability awareness to small groups, her hands shaking through every session. But as she saw staff members' eyes light up with understanding, as she witnessed the joy on residents' faces when they were truly seen for the first time in years, her confidence grew. Daniel kept his promise, attending her sessions, offering encouragement, and slowly becoming not just her boss, but her friend. And Margaret became her biggest champion, visiting the training center weekly, sharing her stories and helping Emma understand the broader disability community. A year later, the first Morrison Care facility opened to unprecedented acclaim, and Emma stood on stage at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, no longer invisible, but shining with purpose. Her story spread across social media, inspiring thousands of healthcare workers to learn sign language and prioritize compassionate care. And in the audience, Daniel Morrison watched with pride, knowing that the best investment he'd ever made wasn't in technology or real estate. It was in recognizing the extraordinary heart of a shy nurse who had treated his mother with simple human kindness. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that Small acts of kindness can create extraordinary ripples of change. Please hit that like button and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that their compassion matters, no matter how invisible they might feel. Together, we can inspire a world where everyone is truly seen. Thank you for being part of our community of kindness.